lead manager in a span of 3 years. In Unilever, she was responsible for driving the cloud analytics and advanced analytics operational model along with Microsoft. In 2020, she joined Microsoft as a global cloud solution architect for advanced analytics, data, and AI, dealing with clients like Diageo, GSK, and Discuss of the world. She currently is the South India Head Solution Specialist, Analytics, Data, and AI at Microsoft India. She has many awards and accomplishments to her credit. She was a speaker at MicroStrategy World Analytics Conference, Singapore in 2015, Promising Young Manager Unilever 2019, and Inspire Mentor Microsoft, etc. Apart from the professional accomplishment, she was a national level basketball player and captained RKNEC in her days. She has been a very active participant and organizer at WARD and has won the Best Female Delegate during her graduation. She attributes her aptitude and attitude development to the concept of WARD to a very large extent. Nidhi ma'am, she says, is a proud alumnus of RKNSC. I would like to thank you, ma'am, for taking out time from your busy schedule for guiding us. Without any further delay, I request you, ma'am, to kindly take over the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sonal. It's really good to be back. I hope I could meet you all in physical presence as well. Especially, college. I and Ankita were batchmates, and it's really great to know that how the college has been growing, and very, very proud as well. Right. Without further ado, what today we will cover is primarily what is cloud, and I'm sure a lot of you already know about it, but just giving a perspective of how digital transformation is really enabled across different industries and the world, and what is in scope and how much you can do, right, going forward. uh, would be covering that. Feel free to pitch and chime in for any questions that you have. Happy to have a very interactive session and probably can connect later as well. uh, and hopefully you take something away from this. If nothing, just sit and enjoy, and probably just get to know a little here or two, right? Uh, just checking, Sonal, good to go? I'll be waiting for you, few more students, etc., to join in.
I think we can start. Probably in the meanwhile, others will join.
Sure. Right. So Sonal kind of covered it all in terms of what it is. I joined Infoceps. I set that up. I was there for good 6 years. I set them up for the entire analytics practice. So I've basically been, my professional career after engineering is all been around data and AI and how best we could do that. I then went on to become a cloud solution architect and enable Unilever with the whole concept of cloud first. And that's when back in the days when everyone was trying to get into, Unilever is one of the key most FMCG companies which have leveraged cloud to a very large extent to be even the forefront, and they're one of the largest, in fact the first CPG industry across the world. And they've managed to do well and grow even during the pandemic times, right? So that is what I will be emphasizing today as well, that how best digital transformation can really help you accelerate even through adverse scenarios, especially how data and AI can actually leverage that. Then I went on to join Microsoft, which is currently where I am. I was a cloud solution architect for UK, and then currently I'm heading the entire data and AI business in South for all the ITIS customers. I'm a proud alumni of RKNEC, went on to do ISB and UCLA, as Sona mentioned. But the point that I'm probably driving is with cloud, you'll have to continue working and learning, and that's more imperative. That irrespective of whether you get the degrees or not, the landscape is so evolving that you probably need to catch up with it with your ever-paced learning. And I'm sure RKDC is kind of imbibing that in us. And I was a very, very active participant of VAD, and I loved it. And I think that was one of the extracurricular activities which I used to do apart from being in the canteen, right? So that was one of the key things. Personally, I love to binge watch a lot of movies and series and documentaries, etc. I used to play basketball. I love watching tennis, and I loved the way Djokovic won both the titles. I'm married to a doctor and I'm vaccinated. So hopefully you guys are vaccinated as well, right? Um, Today, what you can expect is understanding of what is cloud, maybe or maybe not, because it's a very, very, very vast subject, right? But at least understand the perspective of why use cloud. It's a good thing, right? It will probably help you help organizations, or even from a student mindset, in understand how projects could be leveraged. Ankita was just telling that everything is gone online and open source. So that is one major example of what cloud can do, right? It can help work from home, study from home, enable, and the scale at which it can probably do is all because of cloud and the concept around it. How digital transformation and pandemic has looked into acceleration across industries. So you name an industry, digital transformation has kind of impacted it and also helped them cope up with this entire scenario of pandemic. I love data, and I love what it can do. So I'll be talking a little more on what data and analytics could do with the cloud offerings, right? Q&A, obviously, but just feel free to ask questions whenever you have, and I'm happy to do so. So what is cloud, right? Not what you see there, and that's very typical. But of the things that I've learned in university, the base is always valid, but technologies and tools keep evolving. And in this job, like, one is never done learning, right? And that's exactly what I was trying to emphasize in the start as well, right? So a typical definition of cloud is, as it is called, it's a place for storing all your computer data in multiple places. But what really is cloud is the powerful way of transforming your business, right? And that is what you will be unlocking. Eventually, you all will be working or studying further or taking up research works. And this would really be imperative in how best you could do it. And name the field, right? Name the even your manufacturing units or your technologies and computer science, you will see the benefits of what cloud is really, right? So this is typically one of the data centers that Microsoft has, and that has been very important, and that use is really growing, right? So cloud is where someone else is basically taking care of all your infrastructure, right? So today there are like about hundreds and thousands of data centers even residing in water. So there are a couple of companies, including Microsoft, Google's of the world, which basically have leverage water to keep their entire data center. So you can see a very aerial Photoshop of the data center, and you see a car there, right? So you can just understand the magnitude of the data that you're looking at, or the space, or imagine the infrastructure or the that would really be required to pull up a data center that suffices these industries, right? And as far back, you actually see a construction site that is for expansion of this entire data center. For a very high level, this is what the construction site looks like for what the expansion is looking at, right? And isn't that amazing? You know, in fact, the particular data center is more than 2 miles end to end, and that's just incredible, right? So if you really look at cross-sectional, keep growing at the kind of scale that you're looking at, and the kind of scale that involves the great ever changing engineering, but more fundamentally, it involves solving a lot of very hard scientific problems, right? So these are attributed by networking, distributed computing, fault tolerance, resource allocation, scheduling, etc., right? So that is what data center takes care of, right? Sorry. So the uses of, yeah, the uses of cloud, I don't know why it's not staying in that. Okay, so there is some glitch there, but basically the uses of cloud are primarily to store backup, to take care of your networking, to scale whenever needed. So you don't need to be defined at a particular way in terms of, I have bought my computer today. We all are dealing with that, right? You have an iPhone of about 32 GB, and then you want to upgrade it to 126 with your phones. You are limited with the kind of storage else you want to go and buy storage in the cloud, right? So that's the ease that it provides, that you could work with your current environment, but if you need to scale at any level, you go ahead and cloud. You don't want to work with a limited set of things. So your cloud can really expand, be it networking, your security. I don't know if you're following news, but in terms of all the government, and there's been so many glitches around Aadhaar and all of that, right? So that data security is very essential. Banking sector has grown humongous in data transformation this pandemic. So that's all been enabled because of cloud transparencies and unlocking your potential to probably concentrate on some other places, right? So previously, data care was unmanageable. People only knew what to work and they could work at the centers itself. One platform, limited tools and vendors that you could work with. But today you have a plethora of things to work with. And the scale of data obviously is petabytes and terabytes, and all of these are just mere numbers that are looked into. And I'm sure we've all seen that data velocity and veracity presentation and slides where it's going above even Burj Khalifa in terms of the data volumes and petabytes that we're looking at, right? The top 10 cloud providers are AWS, Azure, Googles of the world. There are many, many more which are coming into the place, but these giants kind of either buy them out, or there are very niche providers as well who kind of give their own cloud space. So I mean, you could probably look at these. They also have a lot of offering of free tiers or student areas where you could try and test out all the platforms. So these are platform providers, right? Within them, there are services that you could leverage in order to build your projects or give it to the industry that you're looking at, right? And that could span from infrastructure, apps, applications, AKS, containerization, all of that, to security, Sentinel, those aspects, and obviously data and AI components as well, right? So I think what is cloud at a very high level is we do understand that it is a data center which is probably taken care by somebody else for you, and you can leverage a piece of it, or you can have an access quotient of that particular portion and use it for your consumption. What we will deep dive now is to understand why use cloud, right? And the innumerable benefits of cloud computing. First is cost effective, pay as you go. That is what is being leveraged. You basically paying what you use, right? You don't need to buy heavy infrastructure to keep it, all your SQL servers or Teradatas or Oracles of the world. Keep it, buy it, and keep it with us, and already invest on it. So it's consumption based, no upfront cost, no infrastructure capex, scalable, like I was saying, increase, decrease whenever you need it. There are peak times, there are seasonalities in retail worlds, there are seasons like Diwali time and all of that where they really require very high computing, and there are low periods when there is absolutely no sale happening, right? So in that particular case, you require the scalability aspect of it, the elasticity. Workloads can basically spike up and spike down whenever needed. It's basic, and it is current, like it is always evaluating. You don't need to upscale, update your infrastructure or research on it. There are people already outsourcing it. So basically you concentrate on your work that you're supposed to do, that is your business and the end objective of serving the customers, etc., where as and when it applies to the industry, right? Very reliable, it is global. You're not confined to a particular place or a location to do, and obviously very, very secure, right? And that's proven across, and that's why most of the bankings have gone on cloud, which is one of the major wins for cloud as such. It's been a journey since a pretty long time, and I guess now it's come across, especially with pandemic. The best thing that has happened is the whole trust on cloud has come massive there. Yeah. So you're talking of economics of scales, lower hardware costs, deal with local governments, lower pricing when it is passed on to the end-to-end users. So there is a possibility, and there's competition for cloud all across, right? You can basically, there are too many vendors in the offerings. Everyone has to be on top of their game. So in effect, everyone's kind of making their platform as much reliable, as much cheaper, as much scalable as possible, and yet giving the best in the niche of the technologies to you, right? CapEx versus OpEx. For those who do not understand CapEx is more of capital expenditure, wherein you buy one time, right? There is server cost, storage cost, networking cost, backup, archivals, etc. So that's all part of like CapEx, and that will probably require one-time huge investment, and you're locking your money together. Whereas operational cost, which is OpEx, which is one of the key things in your entire profit and loss statements, is what you can spend as per expenditure, right? So you're basically spending, leasing software, scaling capacity of the need whenever you need it, then you basically upscale your CapEx and OpEx, right? So the benefit of CapEx is you can plan expenses at the start of the project. The costs are fixed, but OpEx is you're actually paying for what it is. You're not locking all your money, right? So you could use a combination of these two. And cloud also offers the benefits of both, right? There are concept of reserving your quota, reserving your instances on individual platform providers, so that if there is a budget specified and if a company is working on zero-based budgeting process, etc., so they can go ahead and buy those reserve instances because they know what they are kind of building for very scalable and productionized projects. Those are more experimental and development. You can always go for an OpEx work and go for a pay-as-you-go kind of a concept, right? The whole concept of on-prem versus IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service, PaaS, which is platform as a service, and SaaS, which is like software as a service, right? So I'll explain the details of what it is. But one thing I've learned in university is that the base is always valid, but technologies keep evolving, and that's what I've been referencing it from starting. So these are just concepts, and things just work in tandem with this, right? So cloud models, which I just spoke about, is traditional on-prem. You are responsible for buying the hardware, you're responsible for patching, you're responsible for storage, networking, all of it, right? Infrastructure as a services, something is managed by a vendor. It could be Microsoft, it could be AWS, it could be Google's of the world. They probably take care of the ones in the greens, whereas you still manage, you still have a hold of runtime, middleware, what OS it is using, and all of that, right? So you take care of it part by part. It again depends on the flexibility the customer or your company is trying to have, right? Platform as a service, which is one of the most large things, wherein all of the other headaches of maintenance is probably taken care by the vendor, but you concentrate on building just your niche application or the data within it, right? So you're leveraging all the other patching, security updates, all of that of it, but you're concentrating on the code, or you're concentrating on the applications that you're building, right? Software as a service is nothing but what you just basically consume. And I think I would be able to help explain better with the model that we all love. I'm a non-vegetarian, so I've probably given a ham pizza sandwich there. So basically, if you're looking at pizza and you're looking at, say, on-prem, right, which is traditional on-prem systems, it's homemade. So you're basically making the dough, you're kneading the dough, and you're setting all the dining table and all of that and doing everything, right? Whereas bake it, so you get the dough, but you do all the toppings on top of it, and that's more as infrastructure as a service. Pizza delivery at your home is you basically get that onboarded, but you are responsible for the way of serving it and presenting it. Whereas pizza at a restaurant is you take all my headache, I just want to eat and I'm very, very hungry, right? So that is, I hope this probably helps you understand the differences, nuances about each. Basically how it is evolved is higher administration to lower administration, if you understand this particular graph, and dedicated high cost to lower cost as well. So which, if you remember, I was talking about platform as a service and SaaS as a service, you could actually leverage the concept of pay as you go, consume of what you really require and build on top of that, right? So physical, virtual, IaaS, and PaaS, right? So you could have a copy of your data on cloud as well, and people still work with their on-prem systems. People who have bought very, very high servers, etc., they still work with it. And a lot of these, a lot of small scale, medium scale, large industries, enterprises as well are looking at reevaluating, but they're still on the pathway of journey of it, right? Cloud analogy, if I could look at it, is again, you own a car and you operate it. You basically take a rental or you take a taxi. So that's how cloud has evolved. And why would you like to use it? Is, you don't want to be bogged down by all these questions, right? You don't want to take care of all these headaches while making that niche product, that new startup idea that you all have been thinking about. You don't want to be bogged down by all of this, and you don't want to invest your resources in taking care of this, right? Even with IaaS, okay, I've bought it, but I still have a lot to do with Godrej. So it depends on where do you want to invest and how much do you want to take care of, right? PaaS, just look at how do I deploy my new code, how do I scale my application. Just basically probably concentrating on very few things. And I guess I would recommend more like to leverage more of PaaS, because I want to probably work on my next big idea, my next Uber, my next Zerodha. If I don't know if people are investing here and looking at stock markets as well, right? So I guess the takeaway from cloud is like what you learn, do all the development, process your data until you develop a new business. So you leverage of it, do all your experimentation there. At least then you will get to know what scale and magnitude that you're really taking about, and leverage your efficiencies, leverage IaaS for shaping your skills, learn on that, right? I think one of the key things that we all need to do, irrespective of the area that you're looking at or specialization that you guys are doing your engineering on, right? I think this would be one of the key things, because somewhere or the line, because I'll give you an example from my family itself. My father is into manufacturing unit, and now unfortunately or fortunately, he still has to be equipped with what is the latest which is happening in the IoTs of the world, how he can bring down his process automation of machinery work and all of that, right? So it's touched upon every life. I'm married to a doctor, and though he is into research and he's, all working with patients, he needs to be very careful on what analytics can do with the data and the patterns that he's really looking at it, right? And if he wants to look at larger expansion of how, especially like in COVID, what is the impact, how it is happening, he has to rely on very large data and do analytics on top of it. So even that profession is not untouched if they're left out if they don't understand the concepts around digital transformation. Speaking of which, brings me to the next topic that we would be talking about is digital transformation. Just checking, does anyone have a question on what cloud is while we progress into digital transformation, how it is impacting and how it is done, the fifth industry resolution and all of that? I will take that as a no, probably will skip later. Focusing on what is the core service engineering within the company that help companies digitally transform, right? It is the people, it is the data, and it is the process that basically creates the value for your customer and ensures that there is a digital wave that is coming through. Every company that is digitally transformed or data driven this year has we've seen that they've progressed immensely in the pandemic, and they've been able to be ahead of the curve because of this, right? So we've seen massive revolutions that have come through, be it steam engines, your electricities, electronics and IT, and we are a very fortunate generation where we've seen kind of it all, right from pre-Doordarshan works. At least I'm not that old yet, so I can still relate to your generation, but yeah, from pre-mobile world to what currently it is, it's massive. And we've seen it all, right? So the digital business is described by Gartner as the creation of new business, unprecedented coverage of people, businesses and things that disrupt existing models and creates revenue opportunities. That is sometimes referred to as fourth industrial revolution. And basically, it's inevitable and it's now mandatory, right? So those who have lost on it have basically seen the impact in pandemic already, right? We are in the middle of another industry revolution, in fact, which is now done by cloud scale analytics. And all this, every CEO and every company is resetting it to make digital their top priority, right? Like I was explaining, you name the industry and everyone is heavily investing on it, in the digital transformation, be it the financial services that's grown humongous. Your public sector has grown humongous. There is a lot of IoT digitalization even happening with the kind of work and electrical work that is happening around it. Telecom and media is unsaid. Manufacturing, I think I'm kind of missed out on this particular this particular graph is media. So in fact, Netflix was one of the way path forward to probably help understand what they could do differently with data coming on board and how they could expand it, because they had really digitalized. So their whole concept and the whole startup idea came in because of the concept of digital transformation, and they did not want to rely anywhere. So there's a lovely podcast of Business Wars that I listen to, and they've done a fantastic job on how Netflix literally outturned HBO because they were digitally advanced, right? So digital is disrupting in every area. Airbnb is, so hotel companies that doesn't, I'm sure you must have all heard this, right? Uber doesn't own any taxis. Airbnb doesn't own any hotels. Nutmeg is investing without any advertisers, all of that pieces, right? So be it retail, tech companies, blockchain industries, everyone is evaluating the combination of digital transformation. There is financial crisis, and digitalization has completely transformed the financial sector. And the open ecosystem basically has been able to be very agile, in innovative startups and adjacent industries have opened up only because of the open ecosystem that they have. In fact, SAP, Unilever, and Microsoft have come up with the whole concept of open data, where you could leverage the same formats across. And that's basically opening it up, right, for doing a real business value that you want to drag it to, right? So all the latest technologies are fueling for a very transformative shift. The technology advancements are the heart of any changing financial landscape, and that is how you're growing, right? So be it cloud, be it the data and advanced analytics, the AI, the voice, the biometrics, the RPA, which is robotic process automation. So your attendance systems and all of that is currently automated everywhere. I don't know how much has that happened with RKNEC, but not just biometric, but now because of pandemic, it's only by voice and facial recognition that has been enabled, and you just need to sign in that. All of that kind of shifts away, right? So that is one thing that is working on blockchain technology. I'm sure all the kids are very, very smart and wise kids here, and they are looking at cryptocurrencies, which is based on blockchain technology. All your OTPs that come through whenever you're trying to sign in or pay for anything is enabled by blockchain technology. So that's the power, and you just need to think about an idea and you can make it happen because of the whole transformation, digital transformation shift that has happened, right? So you have the right platforms. All you need to do is plug and play to get delivered to your idea or to your businesses to enable the next level, right? Right. So the only thing that is harder is to not do digitalization or failing to transform, and people have fallen flat on their face if they've not done that and they've seen that particular piece, right? So there's I guess these numbers are overgrowing as we speak as well, right? So that is all gone behind, and the tipping points just don't get left behind. Be aware of what digital transformation can happen. Work on things that you would like to look into and get to know about it, read about it. Apart from, obviously, I know there's a lot of work that we need to do as engineers, but I'm sure we can take up some time to probably do a little bit on reading about what these technology offerings are to your liking, right? Even if it's art and music, trust me, there is so much that is happening in digital platform to expand it that you will be mind boggled by that entire piece, right? Sorry. Okay. So today's data reality, right, is what it is. It's basically trying to. There's too many things. Sorry, I had to run these before. Let me reshare my screen. Could you guys see it still?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I'll probably share it this way, not in presentation mode. So what you're asking for is too much from your chief data officer, right? You can be. This is the slide that I'm showing. Can everyone see that? The data analytics, the data entrepreneurs, the data developers.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. Great. Thank you for confirming. Right. So you're looking at too much for offering from your chief data officer. There's so much more. And advanced analytics is not just doing the all cool stuff about ML algorithms and all of that, right? It is also to find out what the exact data should be to funnel it. So data engineering becomes very important. The data defender becomes very important. Data governance is one of the very key areas that we're looking at. Security threats around data is one of the most sexiest jobs that are coming in. Still currently, I mean, if you find out Gartner, and Gartners are like the ones who basically come up with a lot of these surveys. So if you look at this updates that keep coming from these Economic Times, etc. of the world, the best jobs that you would find is around data and analytics are the data scientists, the cyber security folks, and they're still considered as sexy from past 3 years, right? So these are the many things that you can look for, right? And today's data reality is your volumes are growing, your variety of data is growing, and velocity is obviously unparalleled, right? So what you really need to understand is, do you break down these silos? Do I work with so many different people or so many different data across my organization? In your case, right, if you're wanting to do a research work, you would probably look into all the publications that you have. You need to read through it. So why would I want to go through it? Why can't I just identify what are the crux of my documentation and then deep dive if that makes sense to me, right? So cut down this whole time for researching by concepts called form recognizer, or that basically runs through forms, scans it, gives you the summary, build analytics on top of it, help you understand what is really needed or not, and then progress with your project, right? So basically, all of this is basically trying to cover up the whole concept of automation and bringing your ideas to light much faster and faster to time to market, right? The data driving transformation is significant benefits. So you have faster time to market, you have increased profits, improved customer satisfaction. And this is where I'll quote an entire study from Harvard University, right? That if you're not data driven, you're almost going back in time by almost close to 4 years. So these are the kind of studies that has really happened. When you need to catch up, you need to be data driven. I wouldn't say that data can data can solve all your problem, but at least it tells you where to look into, right? It cannot replace human interpretations, but it can tell you how best or where to really look into. There are great insights that have come up. The whole concept of recommendation and how Amazon came through was through a market basket analysis done by Target, wherein they predicted that a woman was pregnant, but actually while the father filed a case against them that she was not, but just by the buying patterns, they found out that she could be a potential pregnant person, and they gave her coupons on products to buy which were related to pregnancy, right? So there was a very big case in US that happened. The other thing that Walmart did was beer and diaper. So Walmart is like big bazaars of the world in US. So they did what they found out, that all the men who are going to buy diapers and sent by the women obviously tend to pick up beers. So they started keeping the beer and diaper together so that the sales of both increases massively, right? So these are the insights that can come from data, right? But do you want to take that conscious decision? If you are a person who's not selling beer, what would you like to keep separately with diaper? What is that you want the consumer to pick up? That you can influence by the power of data and the patterns that they have themselves showcased to you, right? I'm sure we all are fighting about the privacy issues that we have with everything, right? From your WhatsApps to Twitters of the world, etc. But you're kind of sharing it, right? Once you've signed up for these apps, you are sharing for a few bits of it, pieces, and a few not, right? So that is the kind of information that they take in to do pattern recognition of what you are saying. And you guys are very, very smart. You know that if you're not seeing it in privacy mode, what you're seeing in Insta, you will get to see the same kind of offerings in Google and ads around it. So it's only driven by the data that you provide and the insights similar people, like similar demographic like you guys actually built in, right? Data culture and data capabilities basically enable a very unique potential, like I was saying, right? Driving very data centric any business process, and I'll try to touch upon what all can be enabled by data, right? So you will quite wonder in terms of, oh, data could really help here as well, right? So it brings out a very, very unique potential out there. And culture can be driven, right? A lot of it needs to be culture as well, but data insights are expected at all rows. You need to democratize data while responsibly governing it, and continue build and learn and unlearn as well, right? So whatever I've probably learned before as an MPP architecture, which is a massive processing, I probably need to change that all the way now. The changing organization, so right from executives to the line of business, your business owners, all of them need to come up with hypotheses, have to come up with new ways of looking into their problem statement, understand what the nuances of the metrics and the attributes that they are measured against, their key performance indicators, clearly define their business strategies, assign it, and therefore democratize this whole access to data, right? All this can be enabled if they have the right data, they know where to look into and how best to evaluate it, right? The data capabilities, like I was talking about, spans across. So you could look at data modernization, which is all your data spaces, which is like SQL servers, MySQLs of the world, how you can modernize it on cloud, leverage the PaaS offerings and the SaaS offerings where applicable, and not bother about it, right? Look into insights and analytics, which is more of understanding the behavior patterns, the customer behavior patterns that I was talking about. Look at those analytics and insights, and then obviously do over and beyond, right? Look at the data sciences, do the AI powered connected experiences, be it cognitive services, be it vision, speech to text. We could have enabled it here as well. So whatever I'm speaking, they would be immediately converted to certain languages. Worlds have been connected, kind of people have been connected, diversity, inclusions, issues have been solved. People with disabilities are now being able to work at par without any issues because of the evaluation and upliftment of the digital transformation and the investments that are really happening in data science, right? So that's why I really love what the power of data could do and what the power of analytics and AI could do, which is artificial intelligence, to really unlock a lot of potential across great minds and use them and not bog them down because of certain limitations that they might have, right? Like I was saying, the key industry drivers where pandemic has really hit and enabled data flow experience in is with continuous change of IoT, AI, digital engineering, and making every organization more relevant than ever. The key drivers that we could look into is intellectual capital, building their IPs, building SaaSification. If you're reading news, there's Cognizant lost out on a very, very big project because they didn't have the right manpower to fill with them, right? So what they're trying to do is, while they're trying to hire and train them, which is a little slower to the market to get the people upscaled right there, they're trying to capture or merger or acquire smaller organizations so that they can fill the gap sooner, right? So human capital, which has now become the new thing that everyone's kind of investing, be it manufacturing, anywhere, etc., right? Is the people supply chain, the training, the skills app assessments, identifying smart campuses, right? Or attrition across the organization. All of these are basically fueled by data. Your delivery excellence, your agile methodologies, and all of that is again funneled with analytics and how ML can really build on these perspectives, right? Looking at interaction points with customers, like we are building in ensuring that like you and I are talking over Google Meet, but if there was any transaction that we need to do and I needed to type on certain examples or share that across with you, those touch points to getting my statement of work approved and audits and digital payments coming through, all of that is the customer experience that we want to bring down and boil down to smaller places, right? There's a lot of that is happening in sustainability. One of the key things that people are working on, AI for good, is a concept that is coming in where they're trying to bring down the carbon footprint, and all the top organizations key KPI, which is the key KRA, which is responsible for, is to bring down the carbon footprint from them. And work from home was worked immense, right? Practically, I am from the sales team now. I'm responsible to meet customers. I used to fly in and out, and now I haven't flown for past 2 years. And just imagine the amount of carbon footprint that I would have given back to the environment because of the flights that I'm taking, or because of the hotels that I'm staying and the air conditions around it, right? So all of that data points, how do you really bring down the carbon footprint? How much am I recycling it? And what am I bringing back? So Infosys of the world are trying to make their entire campus, e-campus, covering these minute pointers to basically bring down their whole sustainability index as well, right? That's what I wanted to give a peek preview of what cloud is and how digital transformation, especially data and AI, could do across different business processes. If you have any questions, happy to answer them. I know I've left just about 10 minutes, but I could probably take those questions if you want me to.
We have some
Okay, let me quickly there. So Sonal was asking that how can one start a career in this field? Like I was saying, try to understand what your area of interest is. Is it security? Is it data? Is it analytics? Is it networking that you want to be in ASAT? Identify that and sign up for these Udemy courses or Coursera courses to understand whether that's your liking, because it's so vast. It's very easy to get influenced by anybody and just pick up on those lines, right? So first understand your liking. You will do great if you understand your liking. Identify this, pick those courses, understand whether you would want to do this. And I would say go ahead for trying to work in organizations that help you offer that kind of insights. Like Infosys was a data and AI company, and I wanted to be part of that. So and that's how I got into it, because there were a niche in there. Try to work on those organizations or sign up for higher education like I did, right? I got myself certified from ISB on statistics because I loved what data could do. I was only, till before that, I was only looking at how data can be represented in very cool dashboards and very good looking dashboards, giving your cross-functional reporting as is what the your organization is looking at. but what could have been unlocked was something that intrigued me. So I went ahead and specialized in in business statistics and business analytics, and later on, and then I kind of wanted to understand how the entire gamut of the organization looks like, right? So I went and then did my MBA. So I had a logical thought process towards how I want to grow, but that's just me. Few of the folks are very lucky to know this very before, so probably work on those lines and pick it up from there. Has learning cloud become a necessity for data and analytics? Cloud is cloud is, I mean, a basic necessity in general, right? Like I was saying, irrespective of data analytics, what you could do, just imagine you would not be able to invest on a very, very high server if you're wanting to do image processing or deep learning, right? You need very high power. So then in that case, where will you go for that compute? Will you actually buy a crore worth of server to leverage it? Because if you access it on cloud, you can probably just pay 10,000 rupees and then probably run your algorithms on top of it. But if you yourself want to do it, you will have to have that kind of a compute at the back end to learn with, right? So cloud is nothing that, it's just that your data is available with some, I mean, you're getting a piece of infrastructure from somebody else. You're just lending it as and when you consume. So cloud is actually no different from what infrastructure as a service is, right? It's just that it is not physically available for you to touch. But if you want, you can actually go and touch in, there's one of Microsoft in Bombay, there is in Chennai. You can actually go and see what it is, right? So that's how cloud is. So it's part and parcel of what you do with data and analytics. I hope I was able to answer that, Shubham. Perfect, great, wonderful. Anything else, guys? I'm here for the next 10 minutes. Let me know if it made sense, something that you guys would like to pick up and know more and have any questions around it. Yeah. You could, yes, definitely start from whichever year you want. Why wait for third year? You could definitely start from the first year itself. If you want to understand what cloud is, right? And there are people who've done that sort of a thing in their 11th and 12th as well, right, with their computer science. So you can definitely look at it. Just sign up for all these trials. Most of these companies have a trial window around it, so you can definitely look at that and pick it up. That's almost free of cost. It's free money for you. I think close to $200 or $1,000, depending on each cloud provider, is there for you to test it out. So just go ahead and test that out and train it. Right.
Any other questions, participants?
Ma'am, like I wanted to ask that how do you keep yourself updated with the latest technologies happening in this space?
Read the latest documentations of whatever is happening. So whatever space that you're looking at, go to these webinars to understand, again, your interest. Like, while I probably would have concentrated more on data and AI, but if you like the other spaces, there are plenty of more webinars that keep happening. So just read about it, follow those companies and accounts. They keep sharing, have an access on LinkedIn. They keep sharing certain information here and there. You'll get to know more, and obviously anything that you like, you can double click on it, right? So you can definitely read more about it as per your liking. But the best way is to probably keep abreast by subscribing to them. I know there's a new app called Clubhouse, which talks a lot about it. So there are some interesting channels in that as well, or Twitters of the world. Just follow your role models, follow your role companies that you want to get into, or even aspire to be there, and then pick it up from there. That's how I do. I am from Microsoft, but I really need to know what my competitors doing, so I tend to follow them a lot on LinkedIn, and keep understanding of what they're sharing, any new documentation, any new releases that keep coming. Every of them have these announcement cycles, so they can pick it up from there. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Right. Thank you.
Anything else? Anyone?
Yeah, hello. I had a question. Good evening, ma'am. My name is Abhishek Naidu.
Hi, good evening. Yeah.
I just wanted to know, apart from personal interest, how big of an impact does cloud computing certificates make on your employer in case of placements?
It definitely does. So that, like I was saying, right, people are looking to hire you to so that they can put you in projects very soon. There is a huge skill gap there. So they really want people who have at least an understanding and who could be leveraged much sooner. So if you have those certifications, that will only add value to your profile in terms of uh, you for your hireability, right? So people are looking at, and in fact, I do a lot of resume parsing for a lot of customers, wherein they are looking at hiring people, right? So if there are these additional certificates, then your chances or your profile index and ranks much better as compared to your compete. So any more education and learning and authorization of that is much better than not having any, unless you showcase that through your projects and all of that, right? So there needs to be some endorsement to your profile capability as well.
Thank you, ma'am. And also, I'd like to commend the way you conducted this session. It really let me know that how significant digital as well as cloud transformation is, and it completely changed my view of how the industry is working right now and where it is headed. Thank you.
Most welcome, Abhishek. Glad I could touch somebody. Nobody else. Wonderful. All right. Great. Ankita, Sonal,
Yeah.
not.
Uh, I think we can wrap it. Wrap it right now. Or anyone is having any questions?
Ma'am, do we need to learn any programming language for that? Like we are MBA student and we don't have any background of computer languages. So do we need
Right.
to learn that?
I would say I would be wrong in saying that you don't. You definitely need to learn. And I myself am a electronics and communication pass out, right? So I had to, since I was dealing a lot with data, I had to learn SQL as a language to understand it. But these days, there are a lot of tools and technologies which help experimentation just by drag and drop. And there is a concept of low code, no code coming in. So if you want to make a product, or like a product like a tool or something of those sides, then you should know languaging. But if you want to service a product to a person just by the ideation of it, you can definitely leverage the drag and drop tools which is available. But I would still say that it's good to learn a language, be it Python, be it SQL, even the basics of it, so that you understand what nuances are going behind it. But there are business analysts who understand the data, and then they work more on the business sides of things and do less of coding, right? So for a fresher, for a starter, I guess there could be an expectation that you need to code specific things, and that's why it's good to know. There's no harm in learning a language. But if you're lucky to be on the other side right from the start, then you probably don't need to know as well. But there are very few opportunities that way for a fresher, right? Because you need to have that background and the learning skillability of knowing the businesses in and out, of how you can solve a particular problem.
Ma'am, actually, I need to start learning languages from scratch. So, which language should I start right now for knowing data analytics better?
You could start with C# or Python. So that Python really helps for a lot of data modeling skill sets as well. So you could probably look at that and start from there.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah, Nidhi, I just want you to tell the students, like a lot of electronics and communication students are present here. They usually have this low confidence that they can't excel in this field because of the degree that they are having. I just want you to brief them, as you being from electronics and communication. We tell them a lot, but you know that coming from a teacher, it doesn't have that impact. So just give them a briefing in 2 minutes. That will just boost their confidence. That's what I want.
Certainly, Angita. So I can only give example of myself, right? I was a communication student and I loved signals and systems, right? That was one of my key things. My projects and all of around it, I wanted to do antennas. There was one thing in Nagpur which used to develop antennas, and I kind of did my internship with them as well. Uh, and that's how I liked it, right? And I wanted to do my masters around it as well. And data was one thing that I really liked to do. Insights. Honestly, I hate coding. And between you and me, I did not do much of coding. That's why I got into more of visualization, like I was telling. I was lucky enough to get into the right team when I wanted to. But that being said, I've kind of marked my way. I've studied for it. I've worked hard in order to get the right set. But learning SQL or learning Python is like literally writing English language, right? It's very, very simple, and things have become very easy these days. There is a lot of drag and drop. Low code, no code is the way forward, because they don't want to build maintainability, right? So you can definitely do it and scale. I think I'm doing decently enough in terms of, even if I compare myself with competes and Ivy pass outs, etc. Right? So not harping on what I am currently today, but what I could project is that even if you are from previous background, if you have the passion, you could definitely reach where you want, and you'll automatically learn, right? Or you'll automatically learn how to get it done by somebody else. So you just need to pick your niche and work towards it. Everyone in fact gets an equal opportunity. Once you join a particular company, you go through a rigorous cycle of training, and there are boot camps by most of the companies that you would be joining and hiring in. And trust me, they do not look at your background, but they look at more of your adaptability to situations when they're interviewing. I have interviewed in across colleges. I even go to IIT to pick people up, and we don't really see what they've done, but how they've done it, right? So even if they've built a project using electronics, all we need to understand is whether they've understood the concept or not, or how they've kind of built it across, and not really like what their coding skills are and how good they are at optimizing those skills, because that is something that they can be trained on, and we know how to train them, but we want the right intent. So that is what every recruiter is looking at, is whether you have the right intent, whether you can cope, look at taking pressures, right? Or understanding if you can work with flexibilities. And that's why we also look at career or your alternative extracurricular activities, etc., right? Only to understand that can you dabble between different things, right? Or if I'm a researcher in Microsoft and I'm looking to pick up for the product that I'm wanting to build, then I really go in deep, right? So each, as per your profiling, you need to understand how really want you to, right? So if I want a hardcore nerd, then I want to look at whether he's made projects which are really, really research oriented, right? So I just want to understand his researching skill and not really his coding skill. Hope that helps, Ankita and everybody. I guess just be positive and just go out there and make your resume and make your profile is all I could do. Work towards it. Nothing is free.
Certainly, this will help. Sonal, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we'd just like to wrap up and thank Nidhi for her time and giving such a varied range of information in such a short duration of time, actually. Thank you, Nidhi.
Thank you
Sonal,
so much. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Um, Okay, I would like to thank Nidhi ma'am for inspiring and encouraging us with her words. Today's webinar was full of knowledge and interesting things. Special thanks to Ankita Harkare ma'am and Lokesh Heda sir for providing support to make the webinar successful. Also, thank you to all the students present here for being such a great audience. I would end my speech here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonal, and thank you, Nidhi, once again from the bottom of my heart. You know that.
Pleasure is all mine, and all the best to everybody. Have a wonderful, if it's third year and fourth year, just have a clear mindset and all the best, and just get your dream jobs, whatever you're planning for. Right, let's do that.
Right, sure, sure. So thank you everyone for participating in this webinar. Thank you, Nidhi.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Participants, you can leave the meet.
Thank you, ma'am.